Let me ask you something a little uncomfortable. How many years have you been practicing or composing music? And how often is it silent while you're doing this? You can read notes. You can play the right keys, the right fingerings, the right strings. But when you walk away, it's just silence. There's nothing clear in your head. This is not a talent problem. This is a missing skill problem. And that skill has a name. That skill is called audiation. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Today, I want to show you what audiation actually is, why almost no one taught it to you, and why it's the leverage for just about everything that you do in music. Let's make this brutally simple. Audiation is hearing music in your mind with the same clarity that you hear it in the room when it's playing over a speaker. It's not just remembering that a song exists, not a vague hum. I mean, actually hearing pitch, rhythm, harmony, motion, everything that is involved in a composition internally. If you've ever had a song stuck in your head, that's a tiny, uncontrolled version of audiation. What we're after is controlled audiation. Now, this is where you choose the sound, the details. You can stop, rewind, play back, change a key, change the harmony. You do all of this in your head. And here's the first hard truth. Most musicians never train this on purpose. They may know the skill exists, but they either think it's unattainable, or they just hope it shows up, or they feel like it's not really necessary for their technique and musicianship. And that's just not true. Audiation is a really important skill if you want to take your musicianship to the next level. And oftentimes what happens is you reach a plateau. And in order to get past that plateau, you have to change you. You have to change yourself. And so that requires learning new skills and new ways of processing music. Audiation can do that for you. Let's test your inner ear right now. Think of the song Happy Birthday. Don't sing, don't move your lips, just hear it in your head. I'm going to do this with you. Okay, so can you clearly hear where the note lands on dear? Dear, whatever name you chose. Can you feel the rhythm? Or was it a little bit mushy? Or was there no rhythm at all other than in the melody? Can you stop in the middle and jump straight to the last to you without replaying the whole thing? So can you go happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, and then go to the last to you on the song and sing the accurate notes? Can you cut it apart and do something like that? If that felt fuzzy, if you lost your pitch or rhythm, your audiation is weaker than your technique. So that's okay. That's totally normal because nobody sat you down and said, today we're going to train your inner ear. It's just not something that they do. They said, here's a scale, here's a piece, go practice. Basically, learn the music. And often they'll model how to play it for you. They'll say, they rarely say, sit there and think about how you want to play it. Imagine yourself, visualize yourself playing it, and hear it in your mind's ear. And then they'll just sit there while you do that. They don't do that because it's not objective. It can't be evaluated by them. It's a harder skill to teach. I've worked with musicians who have degrees. They've passed their aural skills exams. They teach. They've created their own aural skills exams for their students. And when I ask them to silently hear a simple melody in their head, they freeze, or they look at me and they say, what do you mean, hear it in my head? What's the point of that? And one of them told me, once they started to understand the value of audiation, I feel like I've been faking it my entire career, and this is an entirely new way of thinking about what I'm doing. Now, not everybody has this issue, but this is what happens when you build technique in theory on top of a weak inner ear. It's something we really do want to correct. You get good at surviving tests, but you don't get good at actually hearing things. And that's what we want to focus on. That's the gap that audiation training is designed to close. I would like you to try and separate two different skills in your mind. The first one is moving correctly. These are your fingers, your embouchure, the bow, breath, all the mechanics that are required when you play. The second one is hearing correctly, knowing exactly what something will sound like before you pick up your instrument. Now, you don't have perfect pitch, that's fine. You may get the wrong key, but you know what it sounds like. You know what it feels like. You can visualize it, you can hear it. Most people spend 95% of their time on the first one and assume the second one will magically appear. It doesn't. It doesn't just magically start to happen. You can spend 10 years getting better at moving your hands and never upgrade what's happening in your head. Audiation is that upgrade. It's the difference between I hope this sounds okay and I already know what this will sound like before I even pick up my instrument. Let's push your ear a little bit. So pick a song you know really well, like Happy Birthday, a pop song, something you've been working on, anything that you know extremely well. It could be anything. Okay, so now close your eyes. Hear the first phrase in your mind. Don't worry about if it's the right pitch. Okay, now can you take that phrase and move it up a step? Minor second, major second, a third. Just try and move it the shortest distance you can. Just change the key. Okay, now don't worry about being right. Just notice what happens. Did the whole thing fall apart? Did it shift up and stay intact? If it falls apart, that's actually good because you just found the edge of your audiation ability. And every time we bump up against one of these edges, that's where the real ear training begins. I hear people in the flawless course say the dictations are too difficult to learn. They're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be able to memorize all of them because we're pushing you up against the edge of your ability. And if you could do the dictation, what would be the point of the dictation? It's already something you know how to do. So those dictations in the early units are intentionally difficult because we're pushing your ear. Anytime you come up against something that's difficult, the solution is to keep practicing it in different ways. And that's why that course constantly changes each day. There's a new lesson every day for you to complete. That way you're never just stuck on the same exact thing. We'll change things in very small ways, and this becomes even more prevalent in later lessons. Let's talk about why you were never taught audiation. And I've even had people say audiation's not even in the dictionary. It's not, it's a jargon word, which means it's specific to the industry of music. And a lot of words that are considered jargon don't make it into the dictionary. It was coined by Dr. Edwin Gordon in the 1980s. Before that, we just called it inner hearing. But now we have a name for it, audiation. So it's hard to test, it's hard to grade, and it doesn't fit neatly into a worksheet. How do you grade somebody's audiation? And so schools test what they can measure. They can't test what they can't measure. So things like, can you identify this interval? Can you write down this rhythm? Can you pass this dictation exam? These are things we can test. They're outputs. But audiation is the internal process that makes those outputs meaningful. And so the idea here is that you teach as many of the outputs as you can, and then eventually the musicians will develop meaningful connections to those outputs. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you need to train things like audiation, even if you can't test it. You are trained to jump through hoops. You really were as a musician. You are not trained to live inside the sound. If you had a private instructor, a little bit different. They may train some of this stuff because private instruction is about developing you individually. They tend to be more personal. But in group courses and university systems, conservatories, it's not something that's taught unless it's a master class or not part of your grade. And if you ever felt like I passed the class, but I still can't really hear, or I've passed the program, but I still can't hear, that's exactly why. And the thing about this also is that ear training, any program is going to get you a result, but it may just be the result that you can complete the exercises within the program. So if the program presents exercises in a certain way, you can complete them. So the only way to make these applicable to real life is to develop a really strong foundation, develop it through an audiation based process, and then you can apply it to real life once you have a certain level of knowledge. So you need to train much more for that to happen. And a lot of ear training programs stop short of that. They don't cover a lot of the fundamentals and they don't build up the skills. Let's talk about the sentence that haunts a lot of musicians. I should be better by now. You put in years, you paid for lessons, you've taken the exams, the scales, or recitals, you've done everything you're supposed to do. But when someone says just play something, your mind goes blank. You can't do it. This isn't a character flaw. This is what it feels like to have underdeveloped audiation. And you're trying to speak a language you can't fully hear yet. That's what's happening. Once you name it, it stops being this vague shame cloud and becomes a specific target. And that's what we're trying to do here. I don't need more random tricks. I need to train my inner ear. That's what you need to tell yourself. Let me give you a concrete picture. Two pianists are learning the same piece. Pianist A sits down at the piano, plays slowly, fixes mistakes as they appear. They hope that after a week it will stick. Pianist B spends 5 minutes away from the piano, audiating the opening phrase. This pianist can hear the contour, the harmony, and the rhythm internally. It can hear as many elements as possible. They sit down and then try and match what they already hear. It's the same amount of time, but a completely different result. One is training fingers, the other is training a mind that hears. That's the difference audiation makes. And pianist B, especially if they're visualizing playing, they're going to have a more fluid outcome. It'll be less like they just press play on a finale or Dorico MuseScore notation program, right? Where everything's perfectly correct and it's technically accurate. They'll feel like they actually know the piece because they do. They've internalized it. Do you see? If you don't internalize the music you're playing, if you're responding to it in real time, if you don't have a mental map of it, you are responding to the music rather than living the music. This is why so many performers, they memorize their music. It's one way of being more in tune with the music, but an even better way is to memorize it and to have it in your head. So you can just sit here, play through that performance. You don't need to be playing it on your instrument. You just play it mentally in your mind. That's what's going to make you powerful. Let's do one more quick check. I'm going to walk you through a sound. Your job is to hear it, not imagine the words I'm telling you. Ready? Okay. Hear a single tone held softly. Now, try and add a major third above it. Now add a fifth above the bottom note. You hear all of them at the same time. Hear that major triad, stacked, ringing in your head. Sit with it for a moment. Now, without playing anything, lower that middle note a half step. Make it minor. Can you feel that tension, that pull, that shift from major to minor? If you could feel that change, even a little, that's audiation at work. If you couldn't, that's okay. This is exactly the muscle you need to train. I want you to notice something important. At no point today did I say you either have this or you don't. Audiation is not a magical gift handed out at birth. It's a skill. It can be weak, it can be strong, and it can be trained. That's why I built the Flawless Ear Training course the way I did. They're short, focused drills. It's designed to build audiation on a basic level, step by step, and it allows you to stop guessing and start hearing. So if you're a composer or you want to become one, that's why I created my other course, the Composing Hour. We take that inner hearing, apply it to real music that you're writing, and you get feedback so you're not doing it alone. And it's all guided exercises. So you just have to sit there and go through the exercises, and it works in conjunction with the Flawless course. So you take both of them together. But just knowing what audiation is, it doesn't change anything. It's using it in your practice that does. So here's the real question. What do you actually do with this tomorrow when you sit down to practice? Because this is where most people are going to lose it. They hear an idea like this, they nod, they feel inspired for 10 minutes, and then tomorrow they go right back to the exam practice routine that hasn't been working for years. So in the next episode in this playlist, we're going to take a normal 30-minute practice session and completely rewire it around audiation. We're going to talk about what you do in the first 5 minutes before you touch your instrument, how to turn scales into audiation drills instead of finger autopilot, how to know at the end of a session if you're actually improved. And if you're watching this inside the Audiation Inner Training playlist, that episode is literally sitting right there after this one. But before you go on, I want you to do something small. Pause the video, pick one simple tune, and try to hear it clearly, beginning to end, in your head. No instrument, no app, just you and your inner ear. This tiny exercise is your entry into the next episode.